We have a live stream running. So we've gone through some of the reminders about using the chat. If there's a technical issue, I will monitor that. And you can also text me. We have board members, and Lieutenant Governor, are you ready to go? Nash and Linda, is the live stream running at this point?
Yes.
All right, and I will turn on recording.
And if board members would all turn their cameras on, that will help.
With that, Lieutenant Governor, Madam Chair, it's in your court.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us virtually for this meeting of the Capital Area Architectural and Planning Board. I now call the CAAPB Board to order. As chair of the CAAPB Board, I determined that an in-person meeting was not practical because of the current health pandemic and ongoing peacetime emergency declared under Chapter 12 of Minnesota statutes. With more Minnesotans being vaccinated and organizations starting to reopen, I really look forward to us being together in person very soon, and perhaps at our next meeting. As is permitted under open meeting law in these conditions, the meeting of the Capital Area Architectural and Planning Board is being conducted over virtual video call, and all votes will be counted by roll call. Like our meetings since the pandemic has started, we'll begin by determining if a quorum is present by conducting a roll call. Before I conduct the roll call, however, I want to note a few updates to CAAP membership and explain how they will impact today's meeting. Today, we will welcome our new board member, James Garrett Jr., who is appointed by Mayor Carter, and we will say farewell to Ted Lentz, who has served on this board since 2013. More thanks to come, Ted, but a quick thank you and acknowledgement for just your incredible tenure of service. We are so grateful. We will call both of your names, James and Ted, during today's roll call and ask you to confirm your attendance, as we will with other board members who are present. Following the roll call, we will administer the oath of office to you, Mr. Garrett, via video. And with that, then we'll move on to attendance. So board members, after I say your name, please unmute your microphone, indicate that you are present, and then mute your microphone again. We will move alphabetically by last name. Kate Bean. Alicia Belton.
Alicia was going to be, her daughter is graduating today.
Thank you. What a wonderful reason to miss a meeting. Elaine Fink.
Here.
Representative Freiberg.
Present.
James Garrett.
Present.
Don Grundhauser.
Don is unavailable today, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Representative Hertas.
Hertas present.
Ted Lentz.
Present.
James McLean.
Present.
Senator Nelson.
She was muted, but she said present.
Great. Present. Thank you. Senator Pappas.
Present.
Daniel Yang.
Present.
Thank you, and I'm here. Thank you. A quorum is present. So our first agenda item is to review the meeting, the minutes from the meeting on March 2nd. Board members will have received our meeting minutes in advance. And so are there any edits to the meeting minutes? If you have not received them, please let us know. Okay. So seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the meetings from March 2nd. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion, Elaine Fink. I say that we approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
He's so quiet.
I'll second. James McLean.
Thank you. Motion seconded. We'll now do an alphabetical roll call vote on this motion to approve the minutes from the March 2nd meeting. Mr. Garrett, since you were unable to join us at that meeting, please feel free to abstain on this vote and we'll move right ahead. Okay. So Kate Bean. Elaine Fink,
Yes.
Representative Freiberg,
Madam Chair, Representative Freiberg is double dutying with a bond committee hearing, so he may be in and out.
okay, thank you so much. Representative Hertaus,
Hertaus votes aye.
Ted Lentz,
Aye.
James McLean,
Aye.
Senator Nelson,
Aye.
Senator Pappas,
Aye.
Daniel Yang, Daniel Yang,
Sorry, Lieutenant Governor. Aye. Sticky mouse.
thank you. And I vote aye as well. So the motion is approved. And the March 2nd meeting minutes are confirmed. With the minutes approved, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is welcoming James Garrett to the board. So first, we will administer the oath of office. And Mr. Garrett, you will confirm by saying, "I do." So here we go. Do you, James Garrett Jr., solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Minnesota, and to faithfully discharge your duties described in Minnesota Statutes 15B as a member of the Capital Area Architectural and Planning Board to the best of your judgment and ability?
I do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Garrett. You are officially a member of the CAP board and all of the glory that comes with that role. We're excited to have you and excited to work with you. And I appreciate your background of your Zoom chat, is that it is bringing a lot of hopeful, bright energy.
You can thank Kumba Aiken and Roger Cummings for this.
Wonderful. It's great. So in addition to CAP board members, we are supported, and I just want to make sure that you know some of the additional folks who are part of the board. We are supported by a number of incredible advisors and staff to the CAP board. I'll ask that our architectural advisors and CAP board staff to introduce themselves briefly so that other members of the public know who supports our work, and so that you can put some names to faces, James, as well. So architectural advisors and CAP board staff, please come off camera, unmute your mic, introduce yourself to the board, and then mute your mic again.
You wanted the advisors, right? Lieutenant Governor?
Go ahead,
Yes,
Michael.
please go
Michael
right ahead.
Bjornberg, architect, AIA representative advisor. Thank you.
Danita Lemon, architect, CAP board advisor.
Paul Mandel, executive secretary for the CAP board.
Peter Musty, principal planner for the CAP board and zoning administrator.
And I am Linda Spohr, senior planner with the CAP board.
And Madam Chair, if the board members would turn on their cameras so we have the pictures of the board on screen, that would be helpful.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mandel. So for board members, if you are able to please turn on your cameras so that we can see your faces, we would appreciate it. Okay, well, thanks so much, everyone, and it is great to be with all of you again. We will have a moment here to dive in a little bit more, but I wanted to take a moment to welcome you to the CAP board officially, James, and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. So James comes to us from Formula, and we're really excited to have you here. We know that you will have some really powerful contributions to make to the CAP board, and we're grateful for it. So we just like to open the floor so that you can just provide some remarks, and we'll follow that by asking CAP board members to then also introduce themselves with your name, organization, and the length of your service on the board. But with that, Mr. Garrett, I'll turn it over to you to just introduce yourself to the CAP board.
Yes, Lieutenant Governor, thank you. My name is James Garrett Jr. I am the founding member and managing partner of Formula Architects here in St. Paul. We're in lovely Lower Town, and we've been here in this particular office for 14 years, and we've been up and running for 19 now, which is a little bit hard to believe. I grew up here in St. Paul. My mom's side of the family, fifth generation St. Paulites. I think our family got here in the 1890s on that side, and the first Black homeowners on Rondo Avenue in 1909 was my great-great-grandmother. And so that side of my family has been here ever since. I'm a proud graduate of St. Paul Central High School. Go Minutemen. And I have an architectural undergraduate degree from the University of California and a Master of Architecture from Parsons School of Design in New York City. And I came back home here to apply my trade. And I spent almost 8 years on the Metropolitan Council Livable Communities and Transit-Oriented Development Committees. And until this past year during the pandemic, my wife forced me to finally quit. And then I get the message from Melvin that, yeah, hold your beer. You're needed on the CAAPB board. So to my wife's chagrin, here I am.
Well, please thank your wife for allowing you to participate here. I know that your perspective is needed and so welcomed here. So thank you. We're excited to have you, and hopefully with our next meeting we can be in the same space together. And with that, I'm going to ask board members to introduce themselves, and because we're doing this virtually, I will just go through the roll call here quickly if we can do it this way. I would start with just Elaine. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. I've been a member of the CAAPB board for 2 terms now. And at this point, I serve as co-vice chairman of the CAAPB board. Before this board, I served on the local Minnesota board and the National Board of Engineers, Architects, and Land Surveyors for probably 20 some years, holding the office of vice chairman and secretary treasurer twice. And I think that's it. Live in Minneapolis, have to commute all the way to St. Paul normally, and that's about it.
Thank you, Elaine. Representative Freiberg. I can tell you Representative Freiberg represents the community of Golden Valley, and he was recently appointed to serve on the CAAPB board. And things are hopping here at the Capitol, so hopefully he can jump back in, but I know he's pulling double duty. Representative Hertas.
Well, thank you. I'm Representative Jerry Hertas. I represent 33A, which is the western 1/3 of Hennepin County, the rural portion of Hennepin. As far as my background, I served as the Planning Commission chair for 7.5 years, 1-term mayor, 5th term in the legislature. Privately, I have a custom home building company, a development arm, managing partner in the past managing partner in a civil engineering company, and also have a real estate brokerage. So real estate background, construction and planning, engineering kind of fits into the CAAPB board scene. And I'm 2nd term on the CAAPB board. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Mr. McLean.
Hey, good afternoon. James McLean. I am in my 1st term on the CAAPB board. My day job, I work for Health Partners in government relations. So I actually spend in normal years a lot of time at the Capitol. Not so much this year, but I also live downtown St. Paul, just a few blocks away from the Capitol. So I walk around the grounds quite frequently. And I also spend a lot of time at Regents Hospital, so just on the border of the kind of Cap Board jurisdiction. Let's see. I formerly served on the Capitol River Council, District Council, where I first met Paul many years ago. No longer on that board, but also serve on the board of Catholic Charities and the Downtown St. Paul Alliance.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Senator Nelson.
Hello, I'm Senator Nelson. I'm in my 4th term in the Minnesota State Senate, currently the tax chair. I was appointed to the CAP board in 2005, have served on there since. As I said, I'm in my 4th term in the Senate. During those terms, I authored the bill that formed the Capital Preservation Commission, which I still sit on as well. I represent Olmsted County in the Senate. That's Senate District 26. That includes Olmsted County, includes Rochester, Chatfield, Dover, Yoda, Stewartville, and 14 of its 18 townships are all in the district that I'm so privileged to represent. My background is as a teacher, special ed teacher, reading specialist, and I'm a business owner of a financial services firm.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Lieutenant Governor. I'm Senator Sandy Pappas, joining you today from the Rocky Mountain town of Fraser, Colorado. Thanks to Teams and the internet. I've been in the Senate since 1991. I've been on and off the CAP board for much of my career. I represent downtown St. Paul and neighborhoods to the south, the west, and the north, including the capital area. So I'm the state senator representing the area. And welcome, James, to the CAP board. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It's generally it's always kind of a wonderful board to work with. And we certainly do great stuff to preserve the Capitol and the surroundings. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Yang.
Afternoon, folks. Welcome, James. I am a fellow mayoral appointee. I serve as senior advisor in Mayor Carter's office and have been with him since the beginning of his term. This is my first term here on the CAP board.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Garrett, I have served in this role as Lieutenant Governor. There is a really short list of the official duties of Lieutenant Governor beyond be ready. And one of those that's included is being the chair of the CAP board. So I've really enjoyed this work, and this is a really special place where I currently am in the Capitol. The fence is down, everyone, by the way. It is, it's a really tremendous responsibility that we all have. And so welcome to the team. We're very honored to have you here. So with that, of course, with welcoming Mr. Garrett, that means we must say farewell to Ted Lentz, who has just been an incredible leader and resource for all of us here. And he served on the board and the Capitol community since 2013. So Ted, your contributions have been so incredibly valuable, and we are so grateful to you for them. And know that you have just left a lasting mark on the Capitol grounds and the Capitol building, and just have done tremendous work. So we are really grateful. And Ted, I would just invite you, if there's anything that you would like to share. I'm just sending you lots of gratitude for your service, and I know that we all are too. So go right ahead.
I would like to just add, it really has been a privilege to work on the board, and in thinking about what final words after David Landegren's incredible exit, what was it, a year ago, if I were to speak comparably, I would probably have 2 words left to say, because he had already accomplished a great deal. But in terms of things that I wished I had done better at, or would recommend to each of you, was that I managed to attend 2 of the memorial, what would it be called? The recognition, the establishment of the memorial, the Minnesota Workers Memorial and the Laos Special Forces Memorials, which the CAP board had already reviewed and done all of their work before I was on the board, but I managed to make those presentations. And I have to tell you, it is one of the most wonderful rewards for a CAP board member to sit and watch hundreds of people show up and speakers come forward who appreciate the recognition of a memorial and the creation of spaces that address all Minnesotans and that make everyone feel welcome on the Capitol grounds. Anyway, so my initial input into the board was that I came on the board in part because of my architectural background, but at the time, then I was the president of Cass Gilbert Society, and amazingly, again, president of the Cass Gilbert Society. So a lot of the things I've said over the years related to that, the input of the earliest architect and maintaining the great architecture that's here. But I really have I've enjoyed that. The other thing I've especially enjoyed is watching the 2040 master plan going forward. It's pretty remarkable to see it in its earliest stages and now getting very close to conclusion. So thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you so much, Ted. We really appreciate you. And on Teams, I'm gonna give you some applause here if that worked. I'm not sure. But we're so grateful for your service. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future because I know that you're not going anywhere, that you will continue to weigh in and just let us know what is on your heart and mind when it comes to the Capitol and the Capitol grounds. So thank you again tremendously for your service.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to transition here. We have a number of topics on our agenda today, including the final review of the 2040 comprehensive plan. So continuing our theme of transitions, we'll also hear from the selection committee's recommendation for the next executive secretary of the CAP board, as this will be the last meeting that Paul Mendel will attend before he concludes his 34 years of service to the state. Paul, thank you. And we'll have more to say and share later in the meeting, but we'll move on to the additional matters of business for the board, including a proposal to facilitate conditional use permits, then an update on memorials, followed by updates on several projects that are underway. So the next item that we have is to review the 2040 comprehensive plan for board approval. We last reviewed the plan in March before opening the public comment period. I'm going to turn it over to Paul, Peter, and Linda to review the recent updates and our work since March. Please go right ahead, staff.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. First of all, what started as a rewrite almost 3.5 years ago is a complete new 2040 comprehensive plan, incorporating not only the amendments from 2009 and the original comp plan from 2000, but far more work than was ever envisioned when we first started. And much credit to Peter and to Linda, and I will turn it over to them. This is not in print yet. It will be in print. If we hopefully can have some money still left over this month, we will be printing a few limited copies, but it will be a special piece. It will be a memorable comp plan, and after which then Peter will have to do a zoning ordinance amendment to modify, and I am very glad I will not be here for that because I've gone through that twice and that's enough. So Peter and Linda, take it away.
Thank you, Paul. I just shared a screen that is just a review of the memos that you received to cover what has changed in the comprehensive plan since the 90-day final draft that you reviewed 3 months ago. And we are very happy to be here to present the final 2040 comprehensive plan for the Minnesota State Capital Area. Since your release of the final draft, we received comments from the Minnesota State Arts Board, the City of St. Paul Planning Department, MNHS, and SHPO. And so all of those corrections and clarifications have been made. It's important for you to know no policy changes were requested or made. So all of the policy is consistent with the 90-day final draft review version. Just to summarize the changes, they were just clarifications, things such as place names. The Minnesota History Theater is actually, the proper name is the History Theater. So, things like that. We had some great reviewers with a very detailed red pen that just caught the last little things. So we're very thankful for that. The other thing that was updated were a few items that are just brand new items since the 90-day review. As an example, it was just announced that the Rice Robert BRT, the bus rapid transit, will be developed. It will be coming up Rice Street. That is a huge and important development for the capital area. So we did include that information. We updated the plan to include that. So those are the types of changes that were made, no policy changes. During the last 3 months, we also finished the introduction. And you will remember in the final draft, we had a placeholder for the insert to cover more introduction, more information about our early history of the area. And Dr. Bean and her team, along with Dr. Maddie DiCarlo, supplied some more content for this. And we decided actually to incorporate that content into the main narrative of the introduction rather than separate it out as an insert. And we feel that this flows better and it brings the fuller story to the main text. So the final version of the introduction has been completed. It has been reviewed by both SHPO and our comprehensive plan committee before being finalized in the plan that is before you today. And finally, we completed all of the remaining graphics. There were a few graphics that weren't in the 90-day version, the 90-day review version. We've completed those. We completed the 4 appendices, and we added some features for accessibility. So those are the changes. And as always, if you would like a complete listing of every single change that was made to the plan from the final draft version, we have a very detailed list, and we will be happy to send that to you if you want that detail. You're welcome to contact us and we'll send that to you. So I'm going to hand it over to Peter now.
Thanks, Linda and Paul. It's inadequate to have one slide to say thank you. From staff, as a partnership staff, we really owe a lot to so many folks in the committee here, advisors, to content contributors, and then all the planning tracks were all created with the idea that the community was going to give voice early, from the work on Rice Street to the surveys on the mall. We owe a lot of thank you to the community and to each chapter as we went through and did reviews with stakeholders. So a big thank you to the community. And I also wanted to just mention on an executive summary. I think the intent of in the next months would be to create an effective executive summary of the plan. There's a lot of content in there, and I think that would be useful. So that's the intent. And what I would like to then turn back to is the debt to Paul, who put us all in place to make this happen. And grateful appreciation as he retires, that he created the space for this wonderful document to be created. So, Paul.
Chair, you have before you the motion, the recommended language for the motion, but of course we are open to questions or anything from any of the board members or the advisors.
Thank you so much for all of the incredible work that has gone into this plan. I'm wondering if any board members have any questions. I'm happy to take those at this time. And again, as a reminder, you can use the raised hand feature and I can see it. If not, we can keep moving.
Or maybe the advisors?
Or any of the advisors, absolutely. Or maybe it's a beautiful day and people are eager to get outside, which is just fine. Senator Pappas, I see your literal hand raised.
Yes, I was working. Why? I guess I just wanted to thank everyone, and so that we had some indication from the board that we do thank the work they've done, the staff and all the advisors. And this is a tremendous document, and it's been a long time coming. So I'm just really thrilled with the work that you've done. I think it's like I said, it's a great document, and I'm happy to support it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, for those who have not viewed it, it is on the website in numerous forms for your viewing pleasure, but we will eventually have printed copies, as I said.
Sometimes it's a little difficult when we do these things virtually to not have the kind of fanfare, right, that these things deserve. But we are, of course, very grateful. And I would just associate myself with the remarks from Senator Pappas about all of the time and attention that went into this. We are grateful. So with that, I'm wondering, Senator Pappas, if you would be willing to move the language that we see on the screen in front of us.
I'd be happy to do that. I move that the Capital Area Architectural and Planning Board, having completed the required 90-day review by the State Arts Board in the City of St. Paul, adopts the final version of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan for the Minnesota State Capital Area. The document dated June 3rd, 2021, fully replaces the previous comprehensive plan document. The board is required by law, directs the CAP staff to proceed with review and revision of the rules for zoning and design for the Minnesota State Capital Area to align with the policies adopted in the new comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Senator. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Two.
Thank you.
Madam
Wonderful. Oh, yep, Senator Nelson, go right ahead.
I'm afraid I don't see where to raise my hand here. Is this the time for a question now that it's been moved? Do we have the ability? I just have a brief question on the overall.
Absolutely, go right ahead, Senator. What is your question? Any discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm not sure who might be able to answer this. Perhaps I think that the right person will know who that might be. But my question is, as we're looking at the newer development plan here, I just don't recall, and maybe it didn't come up, but we had a few months ago, we had we approved the use of the hospital for a homeless center on the CAP board jurisdiction, and it didn't fit our zoning requirements, and there were some special needed actions because it was out of the CAP board requirements. And I'm just curious what these new requirements are regarding zoning for something such as the homeless center and just north of University, and if in fact if it's different, or does there with the new development plan, does there need to be any sort of further action regarding the homeless center, which I think is time limited in and of itself. So there may not be any overlap there, but I'm just curious about the intersection of that particular special use that was granted and this particular development plan and the calendar.
Thank you, Senator Nelson, for your question. I see that Mr. Mandel has his hand raised. Mr. Mandel, you want to try to take a crack at that?
Yeah, Madam Chair. The zoning and design rules have to be made compatible with the comprehensive plan. There are no intentions at this point, and I'll ask Peter also to comment. There are no intentions at this point to change the zoning rules to make the shelter part of our normal zoning. It's simply the zoning as the legal document must comply with the comp plan. So there will be minor tweaks, but it takes a very legal process. We have to go through Administrative Procedures Act, and the CAP board will have to approve a SONAR, which is a statement of need and reasonableness, which is 3 times longer than the zoning changes, explaining why, who's affected, the costs involved, et cetera. But the zoning rules will not be changed due to the Bethesda. The zoning rules are only changing due to the comp plan. Peter, anything else?
Yes, that issue came forward after we had adopted the chapter on Capitol Heights neighborhood, in which we call for a neighborhood planning process to define it through their vision, essentially a small area plan that can be later amended to the comp plan. So in terms of order, it would be going back through the neighborhood planning process, then would be coming forward a possible amendment in terms of long range planning. But that's on the short list of things ahead of us that come out of the directives that come out of the plan, is to now turn back and go back to Capitol Heights to do planning. And I'd look forward to bringing an update to you on that at a near future meeting.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the clarification. I just wanted to make sure that did not get lost in the reorganization and the redevelopment plan, and it sounds like it certainly did not, and that you've been very conscientious of the Capitol Heights neighborhood and the importance of getting local input as well. So I'll just look forward to those further documents, and I do want to thank the board for their very thorough vetting and development of the updated comprehensive plan. This is the second one that I've gone through, the 2009 and now the 2040. So look forward to that. And thank you for the good work. I know these things are incredibly complicated, involve an immense amount of time and an immense amount of work with a large numbers of people. And I'm sure it was even much harder during this time of COVID, where we couldn't really be all in the same room. So I just wanted to offer my thanks and look forward to further work on this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Mr. Mandel or Mr. Musty, do you have anything else that you wanted to add here before we vote?
Just on the matter of Bethesda, Madam Chair, I'll remind the board that in that permit given to the Bethesda shelter, part of the requirement was that Fairview, the Fairview system owes the board a letter or a notice by December or the end of this calendar year on what their intentions are for the future of that property, so that we don't get into in May, well, we have nothing else to do, so we're going to keep going type thing. So the board will be receiving that letter hopefully by the end of calendar year 21.
I appreciate that reminder, Mr. Mandel. Thank you. Mr. Musty, anything else to add here?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, it is one of the items that it's an update that was supplied in item number 7 under other business. So we have a 2-paragraph update on what's happening right now with the neighborhood and a good neighbor group that was formed as part of the conditions. So that's in memo number 7.
Thank you for forecasting that for us. We appreciate it. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I'm looking. I see no actual hands, no virtual hands raised. Okay, we will proceed now with the roll call. Ms. Fink.
Aye.
Representative Freiberg.
Yes.
Mr. Garrett.
Aye.
Representative Hertaus,
Hertaus, aye.
Mr. McLean,
Aye.
Senator Nelson,
Yes.
Senator Pappas,
Aye.
Mr. Yang,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Everyone take a deep breath and let it out. The 2040 comprehensive plan has been approved. Excellent. So now we'll go ahead and I'm gonna, do more virtual applause because we can't all be together to celebrate this moment here. But now we're going to turn it over to Ms. Elaine Fink from our selection committee to share a brief background on the selection committee's work and to share their recommendation for the next executive secretary of the CAAPB board. So Ms. Fink, please go right ahead.
Okay. The committee, I'll give you a brief overview first. The committee that did the reviews of the candidates for the position of the executive secretary was comprised of Marianne Buck, who is a former member of the board, Alicia Belton, who is co-vice chairman of the board, and myself, Elaine Fink, co-vice chairman of the board. We were joined by the lieutenant governor for the last interviews, and we were guided through the process by Leslie Waterhouse, who was a human resource consultant associated with the Minnesota Management and Budget Agency. They first screened all applications that came in, and then 23 applications that were qualified were sent to us. We reviewed all of them together, and we narrowed down the 23 to 7. Those 7 were then interviewed via this way, virtually, and it was done with each of us asking questions, several questions, two questions per person, and those questions were agreed on beforehand, and the same questions were asked to all 7 candidates. At the end of that session, we narrowed down the 7 to 4. These 4 were asked to come in to the administration building for in-person interviews. And at that point, we were joined by the lieutenant governor. Again, they were asked a series of questions that had already been agreed upon. The first set of questions had to do with them and their experience and why they applied, etc. The second group of questions had to do more with how they would act, what they would do, how they feel about being the executive secretary. At the end of that, we had it down to 2, and we're really sort of stumped. We decided that actually we had so many good candidates at this that we were stumped all along the way. But with the 2, we decided rather than make a decision at that time, we would ask for references. And the references were given specific questions such as, why do you think this person would make a good executive secretary? How well do you know them? Have you seen them? With what they've done, how do you feel how they interact with other people? And then after that, we just had a discussion twice virtually and decided on 1 person. We have decided on someone called Merritt Clapp-Smith. I think you have received in the mail her recommendation that we gave, but I suppose I should read it so it goes into the record. So, after careful review and consideration of the 23 applicants, the CAAPB Executive Committee is pleased to recommend Merritt Clapp-Smith for the position of Executive Secretary for the CAAPB Board. Merritt brings over 3 decades of experience in urban planning, both public and private sectors. As principal city planner, she led the redevelopment planning for 11 years of the former site building in St. Paul. She also served as project manager for the governor's housing task force and worked with housing leaders from across the Minnesota and many stakeholders to identify housing priorities, recommendations for inclusion in a final report that she prepared titled More Places to Call Home, Investing in Minnesota's Housing Future. She has organized, facilitated, and presented at hundreds of events and public meetings, led numerous task forces and staff workshops, spoken at conferences and forums. She has served as board chair and member of the Summit Hill Association, is currently on the executive committee and board member for Fresh Energy, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to shape and drive bold policy solutions to achieve equitable carbon neutral economies. She is the current board chair for the Oakland Cemetery Association. She has demonstrated experience in working with a variety of officials, state and local agencies, professional specialists, interest groups, and community members. She has led and coordinated projects and teams of people to advance innovation in city buildings, economic development, and places making for vibrant urban areas. Her desire to bring people together to identify shared interests, a strategic plan, and implementation step is the work that she is most deeply experienced in and enjoys. She is with us at this meeting today, and I will ask if they can get her on for us, to ask her to introduce herself to the board and say a few words.
Merritt, are you with us?
There we
I
go.
am. Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Would you like to just tell us something about yourself, whatever you would like to say?
Yeah, first of all, I'm extremely honored to be recommended for the executive secretary position. I really appreciate the work of the selection committee and others through this process. And I just think all of the different activities that your board oversees and works on are really fascinating. It's a very unique position, both as a staff person and as the board, in all of the different things you do. And it combines my passions for planning and community engagement and history and beauty in our urban landscape. So I would be thrilled to have the chance to work with you. And I'll leave it there for now. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to turn the meeting over to the chair of our board, the Lieutenant Governor, for a motion to accept Merritt Clapp-Smith to be the fourth executive secretary of the CAAPB board. After the motion is made and during the discussion, if you have any questions for Merritt at that time or any questions for me as a member of the committee, I'm sure both of us would be happy to answer them for you. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Fink, and thank you, of course, to Alicia Belton and to Marianne Buck for coming back to help us with this process. And I know that it was very, very thorough, and it was quite a difficult decision because we had some really high quality folks who came through. So I would like to open it up if there is a motion to approve the selection of Merritt Clapp-Smith to be the new executive secretary of the CAAPB board.
I'd make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Is there a second?
I would second it.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. And any discussion? There are questions for Ms. Fink regarding the process or for Ms. Clapp-Smith. We'd be happy to entertain those now. Mr. McLean.
I'll do just a quick note. I wasn't part of the selection committee. I didn't know Miss Clapp-Smith was one of the finalists until the memo last night, but it's a name I certainly recognize. Before Health Partners, I worked at the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce, so followed the Ford site development very closely, and got to see her in action around. I'm sure I just saw a fraction of the kind of community engagement work that she was involved with, and was very impressed. So when I saw that name come through in the memo last night, I was surprised very pleasantly, and so I just thought I'd share that little bit of background. So I was happy to make that motion.
I appreciate that. Mr. Mandel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will also note when Merritt was with the firm TKDA, she served as a consultant to us on with regards to the Capitol Rice and some of the Sears site questions, and wrote us a memo that spoke to the issues of the environmental review that would be necessary for the Sears site. And using that, we have not heard back yet from the city, but I believe they acknowledge that we are not the local governing unit or the regional governing unit, and that they would be handling or responsible for that. So she hits the ground running on the Sears site. That's it. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mandel. Thank you. Any additional questions or comments before we take the vote here? Okay. Oh, Ms. Fink, did you have anything additional?
Say that again. I didn't catch that.
Oh, I just wanted to know if you had anything additional. I heard you. Okay.
Nothing I have unless somebody has a question for me.
Okay, I don't think so. I think we're ready to go here. So with that, we've got a motion and a second. I will take the vote, take the roll call to approve Ms. Clapp-Smith as our next executive secretary. So with that, I know that Mr. Mandel.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I did note that Dr. Bean has joined us now. So.
Yes, I just admitted her into the meeting. I was just about to call. So, Dr. Bean, thank you for joining us, and we're actually going to go ahead and start with you with this roll call vote to approve the appointment of Ms. Clapp-Smith. So, Dr. Bean.
Aye, and my apologies for being late.
No worries. Ms. Fink.
Aye.
Representative Freiberg.
Yes.
Mr. Garrett.
Yes.
Representative Hertaus.
Hertaus votes aye.
Pardon me, Mr. McLean.
Aye.
Senator Nelson.
Yes.
Senator Pappas.
Yes.
Mr. Yang.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So with that, we are so excited to have Merritt Clapp-Smith join us as our next executive secretary. Merritt, do you want to just say anything else here before we continue the meeting?
A big thanks. I'm so excited to work with all of you. I know both James and admire them both. So that's fun. We're all kind of downtown St. Paul folks. So, and yeah, I'm really excited. Lots to learn, and I look forward to getting to know all of you as we work together. Thank you.
Thank you. We are excited to have you. And if I may just say that we had tremendous candidates. Ms. Clapp-Smith, you rose to the top, and we're particularly impressed by the work that you've done that is very similar to the work that we do here, but also a deep commitment to making sure that folks in community and surrounding neighborhoods are engaged with the work that we're doing here and have a seat at the table. So I am very grateful that you have stepped up to serve in this role, and look forward to being able to be with you all in person, so you can meet this board and this team that you'll be working with. I think they're pretty great. So we're in good shape here. Okay, so we're gonna just keep moving right along here. Next up, we'll turn the conversation over to Mr. Musty for a conversation about conditional use permits. So Peter, you can go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Linda, will you please, thank you so much, restoring the slideshow. It's actually continuing the theme of transitions to speak about the Sears site. As you've recently heard in the last meeting, and then you'll probably see again in the next meeting, an update on where we're at with the community process on the Sears long-range redevelopment. We've been working day to day with, just recently on some inquiries from the leasing agent for the current Sears site as it is in an interim condition. It could be a couple years before any ground is broken. And so there's an issue of how do we permit activities for inquiries that are coming forward for small leases for activities on the unleased areas of the Sears site. So the memo outlines that we have, of course, the state lot X, which you see in the diagram, and that is continuing use and does not need new permitting at this point. Any use 2 years out now since the Sears building has gone vacant, we now do not, unless a reuse comes forward, an interim reuse comes forward, you will see that. It'll probably be brought to the board. But it's no longer a retail building per our code because of the length of the vacancy. But the unleased parking areas we have had just in the last few months now with COVID releasing a little bit that there are an increase in such as a small market or some temporary storage activity on the remaining areas. And so some of those fall under what are in the permanent code conditional uses. Linda, if you'll advance the slide. So what we really were up against is to create a process that was clear for those kinds of temporary events over the next few years. We currently don't have an approval process or submission requirements outlined for temporary events in the zoning design rules. As I said, the recent inquiries are in the memo. Those are anything from weekend events to 30-day events or activities. And so we needed to create a clear mechanism working with, it was really on request of the leasing agent and site ownership to clarify for everyone's sake, an efficient way to adopt or to permit shorter activities. And some of those, for instance, outdoor sales of any kind or outdoor construction storage of any kind are conditional uses. So with this is a template that I'm really asking the board to look at and adopt that allows staff to administratively, without having to come to the board, approve temporary events of up to 12 days. That could include within the MX district, the permitted uses and conditional uses that we outline that are appropriate for that district, but on a temporary basis. And so the memo shows on the third page basically a set of guidelines that would be presented to applicants and then co-applicants, both the event managers and the site owner would apply for temporary activity, and we could administratively approve. It becomes more practical for and to Sears site owners, that's a more practical approach than having to wait up to 3 to 4 months for a board meeting at times. We do want to represent that they would prefer to see, if you were to approve these guidelines, that that it may be more practical for events of up to 30 days or combined 30 days. But what we said we'd be willing to do is bring forward guidelines that would permit us to adopt 12-day events or a total of 12 days, and leave it up to the board to extend that freedom. So on the next slide, Linda. So we can pause for questions and discussion at this point, but this is an alternative. Instead of reading aloud the entire page of guidelines that we've suggested, that we could by reference approve this.
Thank you, Mr. Musty. I appreciate the need to be flexible and to be able to respond more quickly to folks here with regards to conditional use permitting, but would like to open it up to CAP board members with any questions that they might have. Again, members, I will just encourage you to take a look at this agenda item that you have, this memo, and on page 3, the guidelines that are in this document as well. So with that, members, any questions?
Yes.
Senator Pappas and Mr. Musty, if you would mind, please switching the view so that I can see CAP board members better here. Thank you. Senator Nelson, please go right ahead.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to, especially thinking this might be the last time we have Mr. Mandel in our meeting, I want to ask a bit of a historical question that has come to mind having looked at this agenda item, and that has to do with actually the revitalization of the Sears site. It wasn't too long ago, I don't recall how long ago, though there was a plan to revitalize that Sears site with retail on the first floor, including coffee shop, dining, and of course offices above. And of course, to many of us around the capital area, that sounded like a great plan. But I'm just curious, I'm assuming for some reason that just did not proceed, and we're proceeding with a more nuanced approach now, which is maybe there isn't a development proposal. And I'm just wondering if Mr. Mandel might be able to give a little bit of update on the development proposals or prospects or the historical ones that we were looking at, because it has been quite a few years that the Sears site has been vacant. And so it would be important to know why has there not been development there yet? And this is, I understand, just a very temporary provision before us, but if we could get a little bit of perspective, historical perspective on the Sears redevelopment site, that would be, I think, helpful for the board, and it would be good for me to remember as well.
Certainly, thank you, Senator. Mr. Mandel, and if you want Peter to Mr. Musty to pinch it as well, I think that's okay, but go right ahead.
Madam Chair, the reference I think that Senator Nelson is making is to 2013, when we had a reuse of the building and expansion out to Rice Street and to Marion, and then a build out of the site. The same company, Seritage, which is now wholly independent from Sears, still owns the property. At our, I want to say at the March meeting, I believe it was the March 2nd meeting, we had Seritage in, and we did show some sketches that they have prepared and they are out marketing. Those are very, very preliminary, and there's a whole, I mean, probably a year-long process, a lot of community engagement, et cetera, showed a build out of the entire site with mixed use, residential, commercial, restaurants, some office, although at this point, I doubt anyone's going to be building offices for the next 5 years. This is simply a temporary measure because it's going to take at least a year before they even have anything in the ground. They have, I would call them almost nuisance requests coming forward to Peter for a permit to do this for 1 day, or this for 2 days, or this for every Saturday during the month of July. And some of those are conditional uses, and that would require us to come to the board every time there's a conditional use request. So this is just for those things that have no construction. They are not, they can't reoccupy the building without a CAP board permit because it's been vacant since 2017. But temporary uses in those parts of the site that are not leased to the state Department of Administration for parking, for a temporary use. And so it gives the zoning authority to Peter to, even if it's a conditional use, to permit for up to 12 days during this time. And that's, some of these are very, very temporary. I mean, 1-day deals that we would not want to trouble the board and have to have a board meeting for. But it's all non-construction, nothing permanent, nothing in the building itself.
Thank you, Mr. Rendell. Senator Nelson.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to follow up, I will be glad to make that motion to approve agenda item 5. I've read through the guidelines. Certainly they make sense on a temporary nature. And after the vote on this, I don't want to get in the way of this motion, but I would like just a little bit of, why has the site set vacant for so long? And my hope is it's an owner's decision, and not something that the state, as far as rules or regulations or timelines, or I hope that we've not been in any part of
No.
reason for this sitting vacant for so long. That's really what I'm looking for.
Yep. And it is addressed in your memo on other business, also in a paragraph that explains what's happening.
Thank you. I'll renew my motion, Madam Chair, to approve agenda item 5, which is the guidelines for board action regarding the temporary use of the unused Sear site. You probably have a motion you want me to read, which I'll be glad to do.
Thank you. I will bring that up in just a moment, but I wanted to make sure that Representative Hertaus, you also had your hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I too would be supportive of the efficiency of administrative decisions on temporary uses. That said, I think it is probably also incumbent that we have and contemplate a fairly broad parameter of uses that would be temporary, that we would all agree don't need a conditional use permit for. But any requests that would, maybe deviate from those types of temporary uses, and even for that matter with regard to the duration, depending on what the policy would be adopted by the board, then in that event, conditional use would still be required. So that would be my words or advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Musty, I know that we have the language. Maybe now is the time to pull that back up here. Oh, go right ahead, Mr. Musty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that this authorization does not prohibit me from bringing to the board anything that would be out of the ordinary or unclear, where we would need advice. If something that was longer or more exotic in nature or questionable that we didn't understand, we wanted the board to have an opinion on, we certainly then would come back and go through the due process of getting a conditional use okayed with the board. This just allows us to do more of the typical events that would otherwise be triggered by a conditional use requirement.
Mr. Hertaus, anything else that you'd like to add or clarification here?
No, I think that's sufficient. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Thank you, Representative. Mr. McLean.
Just a quick comment. I appreciate this and I'm supportive. I mentioned my day job working for Health Partners earlier, and one of the projects I had got to work on last year was last summer, spring, we had set up a lot of COVID testing sites, and once those were necessary longer than originally anticipated, we quickly had to scramble to find, as winter came, we had to find the locations where we could move them indoors. And interestingly, as I worked with our real estate team to look at those, former Sears buildings, especially with automotive locations, were actually very good for that use because they were kind of set up and had a place where you could drive in and do some temporary testing. And then later we added flu vaccine and then later COVID vaccine, and not this site but another East Metro Maplewood site, I think, former Sears site, and I know in a couple of other places across the state those were converted to kind of COVID testing and vaccination sites. So I just kind of appreciate the ability to have some flexibility. I'm hoping that's not something that's going to be needed again in the future, but and certainly not anybody's long-term vision for the site, but having some flexibility in the meantime while those longer-term visions are worked on, to be able to use those for, like I said, hopefully kind of more creative, fun things and activities. I think would be great. But just a little more context on the topic of temporary uses.
Absolutely. We appreciate being able to be nimble during these times. Mr. Garrett, please go right ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add on the subject, related subject, another site a little bit further down University Avenue, the old Saxon Ford site, University and Gaultier, was used by Springboard for the Arts several times for sort of temporary pop-ups over the years, and they liked it so much that they ultimately went back and purchased the site, and then they hired us to redevelop it and renovate it and build an addition onto it, and we created a green space as well. So sometimes, being able to have a flexible, easy way for people to be able to occupy space, they can start to imagine other things coming from that in the future. And so I think it's a great policy to, be able to be flexible and to be able to accommodate people's creative temporary uses, because oftentimes seeds are planted for, permanent, really exciting things further down the road. So.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. That is a wonderful example of what is possible. A great partnership and site there. With that, I am going to ask Senator Nelson if we pull up the motion here. If you would please go ahead and make that motion.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the CAP board approve the stated submission requirements, guidelines, and fees outlined on page 3 of the memo titled Agenda Item Number 5, Permitting of Interim Temporary Uses at Sears Site, issued by staff to the board on May 24th, 2021.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Fink. Any discussion? Mr. Mandel, I see you have your hand raised. Go right ahead.
Madam Chair, just a clarification. I won't be here, so I just wanted to get a clarification for the future CAP board staff. If I wanted to make sure I understood Representative Herthouse's point of temporary use, distinguishing temporary uses from conditional uses, because the current language includes conditional uses, which is when the board would have to be normally called upon.
Do we want to make a change to the language?
I would move that we do make a change to the language to make a distinction between temporary and conditional.
So we currently have a motion in front of us and a second. We can vote on this motion in second, or Senator Nelson, I believe you can table your motion.
Yes, Madam Chair, I would table this motion and allow for further discussion.
Thank you. Is there a change then to this language that is on the screen that we would like to make?
Sorry, I'm kind of unclear on what's being proposed. Would it be to allow staff to approve temporary uses but not conditional uses, or do I have that reversed?
Representative Freiberg, I believe it is to allow temporary uses and not the conditional use permits, but Mr. Musty, you have your hand raised. Please go right ahead.
The what is in the number 1 of the guidelines, and if it's necessary, we can actually forward, thank you, Linda, is to include only uses or activities that are deemed consistent with the list of permitted or conditional uses currently listed for the mixed use district. That would then also be temporary. And in the number 5, we're listing 12 days combined. So the current language allows the zoning administrator to administratively, we really only have permitted or conditional uses in the table of permitted uses. And then we are creating the time limited condition here so that it's not a permanent conditional use. And it would be necessary to include. This becomes a little bit useless if we do not include conditional uses as outdoor sales and some temporary storage activities are conditional uses in the MX district. So I would suggest that we keep this language if the motion is going to be relevant to the work.
So Mr. Musty, I just want to clarify here, the language as it is currently listed, that is currently posted in front of us, the language that Senator Nelson introduced is the language that you believe gets at exactly what we're trying to accomplish here with being nimble and flexible.
Yes.
Any other questions or discussions?
Yes, Lieutenant Governor.
Yes, Mr. Garrett.
My thought was that we would need to add the word conditional to the language that we have so that it is in alignment with what is already called out in the statute.
Madam Chair, this is.
Mr. Musty, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This simply is a adoption by reference. It was a more convenient way of adopting the language that is on page 3, which then specifically calls out for conditional uses that are then temporary. So we would be adopting that full page guidelines and conditions. Does that make sense? So the language on the slide ahead, it was simply a way to adopt by reference this page on this chapter or page 3, the text on page 3.
Yep, Mr. Musty, I see it in here in our agenda number 5. It's the first bullet on this page that says include uses only or activities that are deemed consistent with the list of permitted or conditional uses currently listed for mixed use district or deemed similar by zoning administrator. Mr. Garrett, would you like us to include that language? I'm certainly open to that, or would continuing the previous motion that Senator Nelson had introduced in the language that we see before us, does that suffice?
I think for me, with the clarification, the previous language suffices as long as it references the entire section, and that's called for in the section. I think we're covered.
Great, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. We care about the details around here, and that matters. Senator Nelson, I see your hand raised.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. No, I'll be glad to reintroduce the motion if there's, I think the question was a good question. I think it sounds like it has been addressed, and I'll be glad to reintroduce the motion. Seeing, I believe the discussion has concluded, Madam Chair. Is there further discussion on this piece? All right.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Then I'll reintroduce the motion, which is the, I'll read it again. The CAP board approves the stated submission requirements, guidelines, and fees outlined on page 3 of the memo titled Agenda Item 5, permitting of interim temporary uses at the Sear site, issued by staff to the board on May 24th, 2021. Does sound like the issue regarding conforming use was addressed.
Thank you, Senator, for that motion. Elaine Fink, would you like to second?
I will re-second it, right?
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. Dr. Bean.
Aye.
Ms. Fink.
Aye.
Representative Freiberg.
Aye.
Mr. Garrett.
Aye.
Representative Hertaus.
Hertaus, aye.
Mr. McLean.
Aye.
Senator Nelson.
Aye.
Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas, aye.
Mr. Yang.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion is approved. Thank you so much for that presentation. So next up, I will turn it over to Paul for an update on capital area memorials. Paul, please go right ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair. First of all, we had a rehab over the past year and a half of all the memorials on the Capitol grounds using funds that had been left over, both from a memorial project as well as Capitol building money that was going to be canceled and then was reauthorized, I should say, through a special session over a year and a half ago. The Peace Officers Memorial, the blue line, the light has been fixed. The pool has been completely redone. And everything else was repaired, and it was completely re-landscaped, taking out ash trees that were in serious decline. Roy Wilkins Memorial was repatinated, and all the doors were repaired. The women's suffrage garden, the wall was completely rebuilt. With the trellis in place, trellis was cleaned, all the plates were cleaned, and it was completely re-landscaped with pollinators that are now beginning to really show off. So I encourage people to take a look. We do have the Rusty Patch Bumblebee at both that site, and we did prior to re-landscaping at the Workers site, which is an endangered species. So the grounds crew are very, very proud of that. Workers Memorial was all re-landscaped, and we are working on some warranty issues with that. But that and all the other memorials were cleaned, repaired, and they have already been weeded because that wonderful plant known as the thistle keeps coming back. I am told that its roots can be 9 feet long. So what you pull at one area might be coming from another area, and you never know. You did get my memo on the Minnesota Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I believe the Department of Administration has worked out a amenable agreement to test a small portion of the wall for the re-lettering, so they would be taking off the paint job that was done on the names and trying a new process. And if that is successful, they would redo the name wall completely. This is all work done by the administration department. So plaudits and congratulations to them for all of that. And then with regard to, excuse me, the Medal of Honor Memorial at this point is collecting the last of their private donation sources. They recently got a grant from a nonprofit associated with the Veterans Group. So once they have turned in all the monies, we do have a bid. We believe that we have enough money to meet that bid, and the contract will be awarded and construction will be starting. If you remember, this is the first time we've actually reused a broken element on the Capitol grounds, and that statue of Millie, which has been restored and repaired, will be returned as part of this memorial. So that should commence before the end of this month and probably be dedicated. My suspicion is look for dedication probably next spring. And then Nellie Stone Johnson is in final work on the clay up in Duluth, actually Cloquet at the studio. Final edits and being touch-ups here and there. Molds are being poured, and that will probably, my suspicion is it'll be installed, I believe, before the next session in January. Having the Capitol closed took off some of the pressure to get it installed this year, and the committee has worked tirelessly, I will say, and it took quite a while to finally get to some of the details on facial expression, the size of the nose, and where she should be facing, etc. But I believe the final work is underway, and you should be looking for a dedication of the first complete, full-size statue of a woman in the Capitol by next end of this calendar year. And that is it for the memorials, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel. I am excited that the State B is frequenting our memorial sites here, the Rusty Patch Bumblebee. That's really exciting, and I cannot wait for the statue of Nellie Stone to be in this building. It is overdue, and I'm very excited about it. Senator Nelson, I see that your hand is raised in the chat. Did you have a question?
Well, I was just going to make a comment. I didn't know that hand was raised, but yes, my comment was to, one, be excited for both of these memorials, the statue in the Capitol. I particularly wanted to thank Mr. Mandel for his work on the Medal of Honor memorial. That was a bill I carried in the Senate, and it was so innovative, Mr. Mandel, in how to really reuse a site, renovate, and I just want to call out your innovation on that and the value of that. I mean, I don't know, that anyone else would have thought of that, but I just thought that was a beautiful way for that memorial to be used to be put in a place where actually what was there was no longer working. But yet they've all been encompassed together. Really, the creativity of putting both of those things together. So I just say, well done and thank you. And I know you'll be at the groundbreaking, the ribbon cutting, I should say.
Absolutely. You'd better be there, Mr. Mandel. Yes, that's wonderful, and just tremendous work. Any other questions about the memorials? The update. And Mr. Garrett, I would just encourage you as you're coming onto the CAP board to spend some time walking around these grounds. But I also think it may make sense, members, for us as we are in this time of a lot of transition, to also have Ms. Clapp-Smith, perhaps we can have a CAP board field trip once we can all get back together and do a tour of all the memorials here. I think would be a powerful thing to do, as well as just an opportunity for us to all spend some time together in person, which I think would be welcome. So I'm going to put that on the in the bike rack, and I see 2 thumbs up. So that's great. Okay. So we'll now move on to the final topic of our agenda, which is other business. And Peter has several updates which you received in your memo to share with the board on projects that are underway. We'll also open up the floor to just additional questions from board members of any additional topics of interest that you have. So first of all, we'll turn it over to Mr. Musty.
Yeah, and certainly the, excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. The intent really was not to present each item. It was simply to reference. And but I will summarize the 4 items that are included in the memo have to do with the Sears site design process, whereas where we are, you had authorized the a community engagement plan as we are undergoing transition here at CAP Board, taking a breath. And there is, our website shows a list of at least 24 stakeholder meetings that have proceeded. Linda Spohr has put together a great survey along with the site ownership, and it's a collaboration with the city, site ownership, and CAP Board in leading starting the community engagement process, moving from planning to design. And we look forward to regrouping with Merit and moving forward with even more energy in the summer. St. Paul City School is on track, going through some TDM, travel demand management issues with the city, and making sure that the pickups and drop-offs are going to work for that school, and they will be getting approval and hopefully headed for construction for opening late next year. A third item is simply an update that the commemorative work of the task forces continue on commemorative works. And the 4th item is the update on the Bethesda shelter, where there has been events, not all of them related to the shelter. There have been events, public safety issues, and there's just a lot of layers of things that have happened to this district, as has this entire city, that they are suffering through. And so it's been great to have a good neighbor group formed, and that was the on authorization of the board. And I've convened those with the community and public safety staff, and that's been a success in terms of going through issues that have come up. But that's the general outline. I'm not going to read to you the memo, and I think at this point, maybe more appropriately is, do you have any questions about any of the topics?
Thank you, Mr. Musty. Senator Pappas, I see that your hand is raised.
Yes, just going back to the Sears site, I was under the impression that Kraus Anderson was involved, and Mr. Mandel had mentioned a different developer. Is there like a partnership there with Kraus Anderson, or are they the construction company, or are they not involved anymore?
Mr. Musty?
Yes, Madam Chair, yeah, I could speak to that. They may still be involved. They are not involved at this point. They were right now, the local representative working with Seritage. Seritage is the site owner and has been the site owner. They had been working with a local point person, Kraus Anderson, for a couple of years up until this year. And now the new vision coming forward, the point person is the actual engineer, it's Kimley Horn. And we've been working with Kimley Horn as the local site point person. It's possible that Kraus Anderson will still be involved at a development stage. We are still in a pre-development stage.
Senator Pappas, anything else to?
Yeah, I did. I had another question, and I didn't know if we were going to talk about the concerns that we've all been getting emails about the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Paul, I had to step away for a minute. I apologize if you mentioned that when you were talking about Memorial's update.
Yes, Senator Pappas and board members, Department Administration met with the folks from the Vietnam Memorial. They are going to be doing a testing in a small area on the wall to remove the lettering that was put on, the paint that was put on, and they'll be bidding out a new process that the Vietnam veterans folks have recommended. It will be a lighter contrast, a lighter layer of paint, but they don't, their objection was over the brightness and the boldness and the thickness of the paint. So they're going to try this other process. They'll be bidding it out and then have a contractor test in a small area. If it is successful and the administration department and others are satisfied, they would then strip the rest of the wall and redo it. And that will take place sometime this year, following official procedures.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any additional questions?
Madam Chair, if there are no questions on what Peter presented, I do need to inform the board that it is with regret that I announce that Linda Spohr will be leaving us. We were unable to give her full-time employment due to our limited budget, but she has found a very favorable job in the private sector, doing what she does best at community engagement, planning, design, and I'm sure the graphics that show up in our comp plan, she'll be able to match for this private firm. So she will be leaving us before I even leave. June 11th will be her last day. And it has been, I have to tell you, pure pleasure and honor to both get to know her as a friend and a coworker. And our comp plan, I've already said, is much because of her work and Peter's work. The creative juices was always running through her veins, and now she'll get to use them in the private sector as a full-time job. So we will miss her. I will miss her. She's promised to maintain the friendship, but she would be leaving us June 11th. So this is her last meeting.
Mr. Rossi, I saw that your hand was raised. Did you have anything to add to that?
Just a personal point of, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to mention, really second everything Paul said. The partnerships that we formed over the last 4 years, we've really been in the trenches together working on a lot of great work, and really proud of Linda and really happy that she's found a perfect spot and is moving on. And thank you, Linda. Thank you very much.
I would certainly associate myself with those remarks. Melinda, we are so grateful for everything that you have done for the CAAPB board, but of course also for the people of Minnesota in this role. And just know that the comprehensive plan, your fingerprints are all over this work, and so it is not often that folks get to reflect on the very tangible things that they have left behind, but you certainly have. So just Chimigwech, thank you so much for everything that you have done to serve the people of this state and this board. We are just indebted to you. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I see, Senator Nelson, that you had your hand raised. Did you want to jump in here?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, one, I did want to thank Ms. Spohr for her good work. And I had a question before we adjourned that I don't know if it has been addressed yet. It is on the other business, that agenda item. And my question is about the decision process task force. I know a report, I believe, is coming. And I would like to just note, one, I want to commend you, Madam Chair, for spearheading the importance of this type of a decision process. I think that is important, and I think this was one of your first actions as new board chair. And I think that is an important process for us to undertake. So I look forward to the report. I'm wondering when we will get that report. And then my second piece is really the most thorny issue, I believe, will be what do we do with the statue that was torn down illegally? And the question is, where is that Christopher Columbus statue? I mean, I think we know that, but the question is the process then for what's going to happen with that statute. And I don't know if that's going to be addressed in the report, but I did want to make sure that it will be addressed in the report, and when might we look for that?
Certainly, Senator Nelson, thank you for your question and for your kind words. I appreciate it. This has been a very in-depth process, and I am so grateful to Dr. Gwen Westerman, who has taken on this particular piece. If there is anyone, I think that we could, if I could pick, a person who would do this in a good way, it's Dr. Westerman. I anticipate that we will be receiving that report here and a presentation of that report at our next board meeting. And I would like Dr. Westerman to report on behalf of that particular task force. And while the specific recommendation around what should happen with the Christopher Columbus statue itself will not be contained within the report, there is a framework for how that decision can be made, and for that particular statute and for anything else that would come before the board. So I think that'll be an excellent opportunity to hear from Dr. Westerman and any additional board members or any additional task force members regarding their work and what went into it. And I want to make sure that with the report, we give folks plenty of time to really dig into it and then be able to come prepared to have a robust conversation about it. My goal here was to bring task forces together that really looked like Minnesota and reflected a variety of perspectives and positions. And I think what we've seen from them so far has been very powerful. And so I want to make sure that the CAP board itself, these task forces are making recommendations. They aren't making any decisions. That is the job of the CAP board itself. And I believe that at the next board meeting, we'll have that conversation, and I'll invite her to present.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. Okay. So we covered a lot. So thank you so much, everybody, for digging in here. Thank you, of course, again, to Ms. Spohr for your service. We will miss you and know that for your future endeavors that they will benefit from your incredible skill set. So thank you again. And of course, Paul, Mr. Mandel, I'm gonna make you keep your camera on for this whole thing, because we're gonna say nice things about you here as well. We cannot depart today without recognizing the just incredible contributions of our outgoing Executive Secretary, Paul Mandel. Paul, you have been around here for 34 years. I don't know if you're counting, but we are here shepherding numerous changes through the capital area, and it is hard to summarize all of it, but I'm going to try. So your input here on the Capitol is reflected across the buildings that we work in and around every single day we are on the Capitol grounds. The Capitol has benefited from design selected through CAP-sponsored competitions and construction of the Stats and Revenue Building and accompanying parking ramp, the Freeman Ag and Health Office Building and Lab Building, the Elmer Anderson Human Services Building, as well as your contributions to the Judicial Center and the Minnesota Historical Society. Your work is present in the infrastructure that makes visiting these spaces possible, including your implementation of the Green River Vision and redesign of the bridges and roadways that link the Capitol area with our neighboring communities and neighborhoods. And of course, the planning, design, and implementation of the Green Line Light Rail LRT through the Capitol area and associated stations. The Capitol area's commemorative works and memorials have benefited tremendously from your expertise as well, including the Vietnam, Korean, World War II veterans, as well as the special forces in Laos, Wilkins Memorial, the Women's Suffrage Memorial Garden, the Peace Officers Memorial and Firefighters Memorial, the Hubert Humphrey Memorial, and the Military Family Tributes Memorial, and most recently, your redesign of the Promise of Youth Pool to honor Minnesota's Medal of Honor recipients. Multiple iterations of the capital area's policies and commemorative works on the mall and in the Capitol building. So in summary, Paul, your fingerprints are all over this place and space, and you are a true servant leader, and we are so fortunate to have had you in this role for such a long time, and just know the tremendous care and passion that you bring to this work. As a recovering member of the House, being able to, to see that on the state gov committee when you would come in, and then now being able to serve with you in this role, and has really been the highlight of my time in working in this building in multiple roles. So Chi-miigwech to you, and we're gonna miss you. So we fully expect you to be around as we are, as Nellie Stone comes into this, into her place and space, that we will certainly invite you back, and any other opportunity to be able to just reflect on the tremendous amount of work that you've done here. So thank you so much. And I would entertain any other members who would like to offer any words to Paul that, as a Minnesotan, will make him very uncomfortable, but I'm happy to do that here in this space. Any other members want to weigh in here? Mr. McLean, and then I'll go to Senator Pappas.
I'll just add, I mean, it's hard to follow that, all of the things that Paula has had a hand in, but I will offer one that I've got to experience. I mentioned before I was on the Capitol River Council, which is the district council, kind of a local engagement entity in the city of St. Paul that includes the Capitol area, and that's where I first met Paul. I always initially thought he was a city employee just because I didn't even know what the CAP board was at that time, and he just seemed to know a lot about zoning. So as I learned a little bit more, I was just always impressed that he, was so generous with his time with that group and his kind of knowledge and information, because small community group, so we certainly didn't have the resources or kind of community advisors or architect advisors like the CAP, but he was a long-term and very involved member in that, and I just, always really appreciated that and getting to know Paul, and that's how I learned more about the CAP board. So if you're, I don't know if you're planning to stay engaged in the Capitol River Council as well, we'll certainly miss your expertise there and really benefited. So not just the Capitol area, but a lot. Your involvement there is much appreciated, and I think would still benefit from that. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And well, I think I've probably served with Paul the longest of anyone since I was on the CAP board when he had Peter's job, and then got the job as the secretary, which I was very pleased to see. I've always found Paul extremely helpful, extremely responsive, a calm voice, sometimes in the midst of chaos in the work he has to do with a lot of different stakeholders and community people with different visions and different opinions. And Paul was also kind of a neighbor of mine when I lived on the West Side and he was in West St. Paul. We would run into each other on occasion. So we're going to miss you, Paul, and I just wish you the very best in retirement. Some people do eventually retire, I guess. Hope you're not bored. If you are, you can always come back. I hear Linda has to leave us. But do enjoy your time. I hope you get to do some fun things and travel or whatever it is you want to do. And I think we have a few more events coming up in which we will hopefully be able to see you in person, and that will be wonderful.
Absolutely. Senator Nelson and then Dr. Bean.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I know I've already mentioned how much I appreciated Paul's work on the memorials, particularly the Medal of Honor memorial and the reuse of the pool. But you know, I just have to say, Paul, thank you so very, very much for all of your work since 2005. You've been on the board, as Senator Pappas said, well before many of us. And so I just want to thank you for that. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the beautiful Capitol restoration. That has got to be a crowning jewel in your crown. I think it is a crowning jewel in our state. And I just know how critically important your work was to that. And we can only applaud and say thank you and kudos, and know that this will last for generations beyond your leadership and our involvement. And I just thank you incredibly. I'm afraid I do have to hop off to a 3 o'clock, but Paul, I know we'll see one another again soon, but know how much you're appreciated, and future generations certainly appreciate your work as well. They will for sure. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Dr. Bean.
Yeah, Madam Chair. I am in transit, so I apologize. I've had my camera off, but I am parked at the moment. And I just wanted to say, Paul, I so appreciated how welcoming you were to me. I enjoyed our visits, and I just so appreciated coming in. You gave me so much information to read, and so, you know, I absolutely enjoyed visiting with you, and I felt so welcome. And for that, I want to thank you, and to Linda too. You both have been wonderful, and I'm gonna miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Paul, I'll let you have the last word here.
Well, I will say I have put in a very strong, repeated, redundant request to the Historical Society. I have a lot of people who are interested in seeing me become a tour guide at the Capitol. And Brian Pease has reminded me that, of course, if I was to find my a blue blazer that I do have, I could just show up and pretend to be one, whether they hire me or not. And to James's point, I can't be a member of the Capitol River Council anymore because I neither live nor work there. But I have offered to help guide them as a planner in their downtown development plan redo when they get around to doing that with PED. So I will probably be haunting their grounds too. But thank you all. It's been pure honor and pleasure. And never in my life did I expect to spend half my life, because I'm now 69, to spend half my life in such a gratifying and rewarding job. So.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. You have earned your retirement, and we are so grateful for you. Members, we've had a packed meeting full of transitions, and you know, I think it also just is important to take a moment and recognize the individual contributions that all of us make to this work to create a very powerful whole. And I am just really excited about the upcoming opportunities. We are in a moment where there's just incredible potential to build on the foundation that has been laid by many people who are part of this team and call, and be able to continue to ensure that people are seen and heard and valued and welcomed here at our beautiful jewel at this state capitol and the surrounding grounds. And I'm just really honored and humbled to be the chair of this board, and to be in this work with all of you. So thank you so much again to Linda and Paul, we will miss both of you tremendously, but know that every time you literally drive by this building, you can see evidence of your good work. And we are just so appreciative and full of gratitude. So members, with that, please take good care of yourselves and stay healthy. And we will see you soon with our new Executive Secretary, Ms. Clapp-Smith. But Shimigwech, thank you so much, everyone. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.